army and armed forces are on a pedestal for all of us regular citizens. So when our top ministers, including the Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, said they had roped in the Indian Army to build 3 footbridges at Elphinstone station, which saw a tragedy which killed more than 20 people recently, it got some people really frazzled. From Captain Amrinder Singh to Omar Abdullah to Mumbai Netas, they all said this is civil work and the army shouldn't be working on this. There are others though who suggest why not. We'll be speaking to former Army Chief Vikram Singh in just a bit and other panelists and understanding both points of view. But first, here's how they all got involved.
A month after 23 people were crushed to death in a horrific stampede here on the foot-over bridge at the Elphinstone railway station in Mumbai, the government appears to have found a saviour, the army.
This will probably be the first time we are asking army to come in to build what could otherwise be called essentially a civil work. But the tragedy of Elphinstone was such a big tragedy.
In fact, this isn't the first time the army has been called in to lend a helping hand with bridge construction. During the Commonwealth Games in Delhi in 2010, a footbridge that collapsed outside the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium was replaced by a World War II-style Bailey Bridge by the army in a record 6 days. Last year, the army constructed a floating bridge on the Yamuna ahead of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's event on the banks of the river. This year, the army has been asked to clean up tourist garbage in high-altitude areas where the municipality may not be present. And a battalion of the army has been deployed in UP to keep a close watch on those throwing waste into the Ganga.
Not only will there be a bridge in Elphinstone, there'll be 2 other bridges as well constructed by the army, which really begs the question, what about the railways? What about the municipality? Is it really the job of the army to be constructing bridges?
Punjab Chief Minister Amrinder Singh has now tweeted, "The army is to train for war, not to be used for civilian works. Don't divert defence resources to civilian jobs." For now, the construction of the new bridges will be welcome news for Mumbaikars. They've been demanding these for decades. With nowhere else to go to, the government has turned to its institution of last resort. The bridges will be up in about 90 days from now. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
So that's what the ministers declared today while saying that the army would be able to deliver these 3 footbridges ready for Elphinstone station in Mumbai by the 18th of January. They'd be able to work in a really fast pace to develop that. But it's got so many people upset about it. There have been tweeting about it. As I said, Omar Abdullah, Captain Amrinder Singh, and also other leaders as well. People like Omar Abdullah said the army was to be a measure of the last resort to be called upon an extreme emergency. Now it seems like it's the first number on speed dial. Many such reactions coming in. Let me just introduce our panelists who are taking different positions on this. In studio, we have defense analyst and commentator Ajay Shukla. We also have from the Mumbai BJP, Shaina NC. We also hope to be joined by General Vikram Singh, the former Chief of Army Staff, to give his perspective of how, in his tenure, when was the Army asked for help. But first, Ajay Shukla, to you. And before actually I come to you, I just wanted to give our audience how this issue is dividing people, and people are really kind of divided on this. In our audience, which we always have a young student audience, I just asked everyone how many people had a problem with this. How many of you have a problem with this? About the army being asked for? So many of you. Who doesn't have a problem with the army being asked? Who thinks that it's okay, army should be asked to do? You. So you're the only one. Why do you think that it's okay for the army to be asked to help out with building footbridges?
Because it was very wrongly made materials. That's why it break too fast. So
you need someone like the army, you feel, to come in over there. Do you agree with that, Ajay Shukla?
No, I don't agree with that. The first and foremost reason, of course, which everybody will argue, and rightly so, is that the army is a war-fighting institution. It is not supposed to be standing around waiting to be asked to do jobs that should go to other people. The army is meant to be training for war. These engineers are meant to be training to build bridges, but not railway bridges. They are meant to be bridging rivers, meant to be bridging, what they call combat engineering.
Right.
In the face of the enemy, how do you lay down a bridge? And for each bridge that they are laying, say on Elphinstone railway station, that's time that's going away from training, that's resources that are going away from training. But the more important reason really is, how much are you going to keep loading onto the shoulders of the army just because it's an efficient and an effective institution? Tomorrow, you say the army should go and do another job also. This is the path that the Pakistan army took as it became, in the eyes of its citizenry, more and more indispensable and more the only institution in the country that works. And what happened? The army ended up ruling that country. I have
so it
no
was a
doubt.
Trend.
I have no doubt, based on some of the performances that I see from some of the ministers of this cabinet, that our generals would probably do a better job as ministers. But is that what we want? Is that what we want to start loading onto the shoulders army? Surely not.
I'll get Shaina NC to respond to that, but I think we can also go across to General Vikram Singh. Sir, I know that in your tenure, when you were Chief of the Army Staff, that your help was asked for 2 natural disasters. There was the Kathmandu earthquake, the Nepal earthquake, which saw vast devastation, and of course the Uttarakhand floods as well. What do you make of the army being called in now to? Do you agree with what Ajay Shukla is saying here?
Right. Sunitra, can you give me uninterrupted 3 to 4 minutes to clarify and put the entire thing in perspective?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, firstly, I generally stay away from such discussions, where you have the political leadership getting involved, because as a former chief, I scrupulously avoid commenting on any political leader. That's not my job. That's the job of politicians. As a soldier, let me put across to you the both sides of it, what exactly is supposed to be done, because I've dealt with the internal security, I've dealt with the Aid to Civil Authority as a colonel in the military operations. I was holding the desk, and let me give out to you the provisions. Now, firstly, the concerns that have been expressed by various people, including by Colonel Shukla, absolutely correct that the army should not be used for such things. Army should be brought in as an instrument of last resort wherever necessary. That's absolutely correct, and I fully endorse that, and I endorse the views of all the leaders who have said that. But now coming on to the other side, since I have in-depth knowledge of this subject, let me just clarify that there is one publication of 1970 vintage, Aid to Civil Authority, which lays down that the army can be requisitioned for 4 purposes as far as the internal security is concerned, or in the internal dimensions are concerned. 1, law and order, where you have, like for example, the case of Jammu and Kashmir, you have Northeast, you have other cases where the army has been called from time to time. The second one is for disaster management, which you just referred to, emergency situations where the army gets in the case of earthquakes, tsunami, floods and all that. The third is for running of essential services. Please remember this. And army actually has today, I was Eastern Army Commander, I had with me the TA railways. So you have components in the form of territorial army which can be got together to be able to assist the civil administration in running of railway services, in case of, just in case the electricity staff goes on strike, to run the electrical services, inland water transport services. There are a large number of TA units which are there to assist the civil administration. The third point is, when they say army should not be involved, I fully endorse what people are saying, and this has been the stated stance of the army headquarters military operations to the Ministry of Defence from time to time. But let me clarify on this while on the subject. This is with regard to the law and order, where the commitment becomes enduring. It is prolonged over months, like for example J&K, it's decades. Northeast decades, right from 47 onwards. So we are very chary, and you would have seen both UPA and NDA has scrupulously ensured that the army does not get involved in the Naxal areas. But in this particular case, if you come to think of it, this falls in the category of any other type of aid. It is the fourth kind of aid which is spelled out in the Aid to Civil Authority 1970, in which the government, the civil administration can requisition the army to provide aid. Like for example, you would have seen that when we went to Antarctica, it was the army engineers who had gone in over there. You talked of the Commonwealth Games. Yes, for national, to avoid national embarrassment, the army came in and constructed that bridge.
So, sir,
I am certain now that the defense minister has taken this call, It is definitely in concert with the chief, and this is based on a very detailed SWOT analysis that there are reserves available. The commitment is one time. It is not an enduring commitment. The army will detach after 6 months or 7 months. But the point is, if it is in the national interest, I am sure it has been viewed by the Honorable Raksha Mantri in concert with the chief, and there is no reason for us to question what the chief has done.
Okay, sir. So thank you for putting that into perspective. In a way, I understand, and it's an interesting distinction you make, that your personal opinion is agreeing with a lot of what other people are saying, including what Ajay Shukla is saying. But according to the rules, it's within the thing of rules. So here's what I want to ask you, Shaina NC. Ajay Shukla has very clearly said that this is not, if our priority is defense, if our priority is nation building and making sure that our army is a smart squad, they should be doing this. Why don't we have a civilian, why do we have to go to them for this, for building a foot over bridge?
First, please understand that this is the Army of India. It's not the army of another country. And this is not the first time that the army has come to help in situations of urgency. If you recall, during Sri Ravi Shankar's program, the Yamuna Nadi, there was a floating bridge which was built by the army. It is a question of urgency, and I think that today, when we were all present with the Honorable Chief Minister, the Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and the Railway Minister Piyush Goyal, it was a consensus that collaborative working in times where there is a time-bound approach which is required, we can avail of help of the army, and they were so happy to offer so. I don't see what this big question and hullabaloo is. If at all we should question, is this about doing the job, or is this about procrastinating and waiting and deliberating?
Okay.
And do remember that the army has also stood as vigilance during the Ganga cleaning. So
yes,
if you're going to view it as, oh, should the army have been actually being, watching what is being littered? Obviously, one would question that the larger interest, what is it that we want? And if we want jobs to be done, and if the army is facilitating with coordination with the Railway Ministry to do so, I think we should welcome it.